3D printing has become a newly acquired addiction of mine. I started off using it to print parts for my FPV drones, but that slowly blossomed into printing things I never even thought or knew was possible. In the short amount of time I've been in this hobby, I've gone from printing functional parts to little toys and gimmicks to even having other people ask me to print things for them, making a couple bucks. 3D printing has so many uses, a lot that I never even thought or knew was possible. But before we get to that, if you're new here, my name is Cody. I like to play with cameras, fly FPV drones, and of course, what we're talking about today, 3D print. Okay, now take a look. I started off with 3D printing for all of my drone parts. Pretty much everything that isn't carbon fiber or an electronic on these drones is 3D printed, such as the GoPro mount and the antenna holder. I didn't know how to design at this point, so I just found the files I needed online, and when I was scrolling through these websites, I quickly realized that, hey, there's like a ton of stuff that you can 3D print. And obviously being a big camera guy, I wanted to print something for my cameras and kind of customize it and make it my own. I looked online and found these lens caps that you could print, and I could modify them to have different text I want, but none of them really fit well. So this is a lens cap that I found online, but I quickly realized that after using it a couple of times, the lens cap would just fall right off, and I got super annoyed at that. So I decided, why don't I just try to make my own? So I used a program called Fusion 360, and that's when I really started to get invested in 3D printing. I spent hours and hours kind of developing these lens caps and probably like 30 different prototypes, and this is what I finally came up with. These are my hero caps I'm actually selling. But basically throughout the journey of designing these, I quickly got more and more invested into not only 3D printing, but also designing and customizing my own prints. I've gone to a point where I've made a bunch of stuff out of 3D printed parts, like these lens covers, to this mic holder for my Rode Wireless Pros, to these drone hangers, and to customizing my own studio setup with shelves and brackets and holders, which is exactly what we're going to be doing today. I've had people ask me like, 3D printed parts are cool, but what happens if you actually need a part that requires a lot of strength? But what people don't realize is that 3D printed parts can actually be really strong. So I designed these out brackets that fit on top of my pegboard, and I use them to hang my nanoLights on top of it if I want to keep them up there for set. But because of the material and the density and like the orientation that was printed in, they're actually super strong, and 100% trust them enough to put $1,000 worth of lights up there and just hang them there. And we're going to be relying on the strength and customizability to build a part for my charging station I just started. So right now I'm trying to install this power bar so that it fits onto the pegboard for my charging station, but I'm running into a little problem here. Let me show you. So this is our power bar right now, but when we try to put it on, we can actually see that this side is wobbly, and that's because this pegboard, there's nothing supporting it from the back. So if I move the pegboard here, it shakes back and forth, which means that it's uneven and the power bar can't lay flat on it. So what we can do is instead, we can 3D print a bracket that will support the pegboard from the back, and it'll stop all this movement. And we already have some of these supporting blocks. As you can see here, some of these holes are filled, and here on the side, I just don't have anything down here. So these will just help support it from the back, and it stops it from shaking, and it'll keep all of this level so that the power bar can just sit pretty nice against it. So let's go do that right now. So right now I'm going to try to find that supporting bracket that we're talking about, and we're going to find it online. And the great thing about 3D printing is, for a lot of popular things, there's a lot of models online already, so you don't have to design it yourself. So if I just type in Scatus, which is the pegboard I'm using, if you scroll down to here, I know this one has some supporting brackets. So if you take a look at this one will fit what we're looking for, which is the top and the bottom connector, but we don't need these 4 pieces, we only need 2. So once we download this, I just brought it over into my slicer, which is a program that tells my 3D printer what we're going to print. And if we orient this the other way, we can see that we only need these 2 pieces, we don't need the full 4. So I'm just going to cut it here, cut it right around here, and there we go. Now this piece will hold the top and bottom together, so this is where we're going to print, and I'm just going to print 2 of them just so that we have 1 for each side, even though I don't need 2. So if we take a look at this, it's going to be about an hour to print, so let's load it up. So here we have our finished print. Let's see if it fits. Okay, so that's a little bit better, but now our next problem is how we're going to mount the power bar to the pegboard. And I wasn't able to find a model for this online, so I'm going to have to design my own. So right now my plan is to create a channel for the power bar to sit in, and the power bar is going to be facing up so that when I plug things in I can push against the workbench and just kind of have some leverage. So we have our calipers here. We're just going to take a few measurements of the power bar. So we got a couple of measurements. We're just going to do a very quick model and then do a test print just to see if it fits first. So I did a couple of test prints. These are just clips that are meant to clip around the power bar and then it's going to screw into the pegboard. And I'm basically ready to print the final version. But before I get to that, probably my favorite reason why I got into 3D printing is because of stuff like this. Where else am I going to find a piece that will let me mount this exact power bar to this pegboard in the exact configuration I want? And this isn't something that I can just go in and buy. And if I have a vision of something that I want and I can't buy it, then I can just design my own piece and then mount it however I want. Same thing kind of goes with the other pieces that I have. Where else am I going to find this design and I can just adjust this to whatever width and length that I want, or a custom display for all my figures, or kind of like my drone hangers. I get to just design what I want, it's cheaper, and I get full control of how I want it to look. So this is our rendered piece here. We're going to send it over to the printer to print. Okay, so my custom piece to mount the power bar to the pegboard is finished, so let's see if it fits. Okay, so this is what we have now. It was a little bit harder than I expected, but I think it turned out pretty well. So the reason why it was so hard was because these brackets are super snug, and I want to make it so that this power bar wouldn't move around. So ideally, we should be able to plug this in with one hand, and then pull it out with one hand, and this power bar won't move at all. And we're back. I literally didn't sleep last night because I was just working on the charging station and the power bar holder, and I still have a ton of work for it to do, but I'm super happy with how that piece turned out. But that kind of just brings it back into my biggest annoyance with trying to customize a setup is that I have to go to the store and see what they offer and then come back to my setup and kind of adjust my own setup based on what I can buy at the store. But with 3D printed parts, if I have a specific variation or a vision that I see in my head, or if I want something printed in a way that I can't just go to the store and buy, instead of just being stuck and having to kind of change my whole setup to what I can buy at the store, I can just design that part and print it out myself so that my setup can be exactly the way I want it. So I'm gonna go and try and figure out what I want to work on next for the charging station. 3D printing is becoming more and more popular, but it's still kind of niche and it's still very new to some people. So if you have any questions about 3D printing, or if you have some custom parts that you want to print in, definitely leave a comment down below and I'll see you in the next video. Peace!